And then we have two additions to the agenda. One is in District 741 is proud of, and then one in personnel. So we need to adopt the agenda with those two additions.
So moved.
We have a motion from Cheryl, a second from Bruce. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passed. Okay, District 741 is proud of Grant Thompson, grade 12, Nathan Stagg, grade 12, Brent Berg, grade 12, Matthew Flora, grade 12, and Gavin Stanger, grade 11, for being named first team all district for the 2015 football season. Next we have Zach Holzer, grade 12, Colin Riley, grade 12, Matthew Maher, grade 12, for being named second team all district for the 2000 football season. Next we have Grant Thompson, grade 12, Nathan Stang, grade 12, Gavin Stanger, grade 11, and Garrett Lusik. Okay, sorry about that, Garrett, if you're listening to this. Grade 11 for being named all section 5AA for the 2015 football season. Grant Thompson, grade 12, for being named Mid-State District Quarterback of the Year for the 2015 football season. Grant Thompson, grade 12, for being named to the West Central Tribune All-Area Football Team for the 2015 season. Nathan Stang, grade 12, Brent Berg, grade 12, Matthew Flora, grade 12, Gavin Stager, grade 11, for being named honorable mention all-area on the 2015 West Central Tribune All-Area Football Team. Brent Berg, grade 12, Matthew Maher, grade 12, for being named to the 2015 Class 2AA Academic All-State Football Team. Nathan Stang, grade 12, for setting a school record in football in the 2015 season, becoming the first player to score 5 touchdowns in a single game 2 times. Grant Thompson, grade 12, for setting a school record in football in the 2015 season by scoring 38 points in a single game. We would like to thank Gretchen O'Fallon for once again.
Still got the second page.
Oh, we got more?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do have a few more. Okay. Ella Johnson, grade 12, and Sydney Riley, grade 11, for being named, so what's CMC stand for? Central Minnesota Central Minnesota Conference First Team All Conference for the 2015 volleyball season. Ashley Frolick, grade 12, and Rochelle Bierman, grade 11, for being named Central Minnesota Conference Second Team All Conference for the 2015 volleyball season. Michaela Quaid, grade 12, for setting the school record for the most career blocks, 264 in volleyball during the 2015 season. Sydney Riley, grade 11, for setting the school record for the most career assists, 881 in volleyball during the 2015 season. Notice the typo? Yeah, I did. On the year?
I did, I corrected it.
We would like to thank Gretchen O'Fallon for once again decorating the auditorium for our Christmas programs. She always does a fantastic job. So from the district, thank you everybody. All these people did a really nice job. Then we now are on public comment. So do we have anybody here from public comment? If you're on public comment, you could just smile at us and we'll know you're here. So we have nobody for public comment. Approve and correct minutes from the November 24th, 2015 regular board meeting. So the minutes were in the packet. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes. I have a second by Lou. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passed. We have consent agenda, one item. Review and consider approval of the following non-athletic assignment for the 2015-16 school year. Speech advisor Courtney Miller.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion from Mark to approve the consent agenda. I'll make a second from Bruce. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. Okay, now we are on business. For the public that's here, the public has the ability to speak on any of the items in business. So if you have something you want to say, just wave your hand, or something if we miss addressing and remembering that we've got to talk to you or open that discussion. So we'll have PMA on first. Are you going to show something behind me?
You do have a slideshow behind you. You do
So-
have
so-
a paper packet. You might be better if you move up to the front, and then we can kind of dim that.
Okay.
way. So,
And this is our,
No, I'm just not sure.
what is it? Okay, yep. I think you need to speak to the mic though.
Oh, we
I
can just grab one.
think you can just put it out anyone. Because otherwise you won't be able to hear you well.
come on, Will. Come on.
Tell us yours on one light switch on.
Well, good evening. I think
You are.
Good evening, board members and Mr. Superintendent. Steve Humper with PMA Financial, and I'm happy to be here again for several years and going over your truth and taxation presentation. Every district in the state of Minnesota is doing this in the month of December as its requirement, and you are holding yours tonight. So we'll kind of go through this process as normal. The requirements when districts are holding a truth and taxation presentation, there's really only 3 requirements listed by the state. And one is there be a presentation on the current school year budget, including where your revenues and expenditures go and what programs are going to. We need to present the proposed tax levy, including how your levy has changed from this year's taxes payable in 2016 to taxes payable in 2015, last year. And then also, as actually Bruce said, public comment must be allowed as part of a truth and taxation presentation. So after the presentation's done, I'll turn it over to the chair, and the chair can ask if anybody wants to speak to it, but that's one of the requirements. So we go back to the process. This is a presentation on your taxes that are going to be payable in 2016 for board members in the audience. It really means that that's taxes that are going to be collected in the calendar year 2016, which are to be spent in your school year 2016-2017. And this whole process really starts back even prior to last June. So Joan and Bob are working in the district office, supplying all this information, gathering information, including enrollment and levies and a bunch of other information that goes to the state of Minnesota. They compile all that, and they send out preliminary numbers in August, which is what the board approved at that point in time, a preliminary levy. In September the board approved that. In November, the counties then mail the tax statements, proposed tax statements, to all the members in their region, in their county, and that way the residents have a chance to come to either the county board or the school district or the city to hear presentations like this, and if they have some issues, to comment on it before the board actually takes action on that. In December, which is where we're at right now, you have that truth and taxation hearing, and you are then required to set a final levy, and that's on your agenda for tonight's meeting. Okay, sorry about that. So now we'll review the first requirement, and that's going over the current school year's budget. And in the Paynesville School District, you have 5 types of budgets that you're required to keep. One is called the general fund, which is the vast majority of all your funding. That's for your teachers, that's for your transportation, that's for your utilities, everything that people kind of assume goes on in a school district. Food service fund is pretty self-explanatory. It's for the breakfast and lunches that are served in the schools. The community service fund is actually an expanding fund throughout the entire state, and that's really from pre-K all the way to adult, so adult basic education or preschool, things outside of the normal K-12 programs fall into community service fund. Your building construction fund, every district doesn't necessarily have that. Your district does because it sold some bonds, and so you're making some repairs in your buildings, and that's what happens in your building construction fund. And then your debt service fund is a fund that's used for districts when they're paying off debt for bonds. And again, your district has sold some bonds, and so it has some debt, and that's where those dollars are kept. So when we look at your 2016 budget summary, again, I have those 5 funds listed, and you'll notice that your biggest fund by far is your general fund. And again, that's really all the operations that go on, your K-12 expenditures and revenues. And you'll notice on the top line that you actually have a surplus budget, or the board adopted a surplus budget of $9.7 million in revenue and $9.5 million in expenses. So it's a surplus budget by $201,000 roughly. And that's great news following the audit that the board heard that you had a $526,000 surplus last year. So you have a nice trend going. There have been some years where there have been some deficit budgets, but now you're on a positive trend of having some surplus budgets. The food service fund is just a slight surplus of just under $14,000. You can see community service fund is pretty much a push, so your revenues are matching your expenditures. Your construction fund really throws the totals out of whack, and so let me explain that. Excuse me. The revenue that is recognized in a construction fund are the bond proceeds. Now, you received your bond proceeds a year ago, so all the funds were recognized as revenue that year. And then the expenditures are recorded in the year they actually take place. So you received all your money ahead of time to do construction, and that was recorded in fiscal year 15. And now you spent some of that money in 2015, but not a lot. And a lot of your expenditures now are going to flow through 2016. So you already have your money to cover that. It's kind of sitting in an account on your behalf, and that's why it looks out of balance on this one year, just because that's where it's happening. And then your debt service fund, I'm sorry, Bob, just let me go back there. No, it's okay. Your debt service fund, you can see, is roughly balanced.
If I go the right way.
That's okay. There we go. Your revenue is a slightly under your expenditures, and we can actually see that on some slides that will go forward. Normally speaking, you're going to collect roughly the same amount of revenue that you're going to have to pay for your debt service. And again, debt service is your principal and interest on your bonds, just like you're paying your home mortgage. The reason you're collecting slightly less revenue is because in some prior years, you've collected more revenue than you needed, which is actually by state law, you're supposed to collect 105% of the total expenditures that you have. And when that money builds up over time, that extra 5%, you have to give that back to the taxpayers over time. And so that's why your revenues are slightly less than your expenditures going forward. Okay, so now we need to look like where is your revenue and expenditures going. So by fund, you can see again that all the revenues, 85% of those are going into your general fund, again, your biggest fund by far. 7% in your debt service fund, and your community service and food service fund represent 4%. The revenues by source, where is your money coming from? 71% of all that revenue that was on that last page is coming from the form of state aid. 18% is coming from your local property taxes. So we're talking about setting the levy tonight. That really only represents 18% of the entire district budget. You're getting 4% from the federal government, and then 7% is kind of a catch-all other category. Most of that is what we call local revenue, like your food service, when parents are paying for their students to eat at lunchtime, that would be the local. When you have people spending money to come see your football team play, which you had a lot of award winners on, that goes into that local money as well. So when we flip over by expenditures, you're going to see that this matches or mirrors your revenues very closely, with the exception again of the construction fund. The general fund represents 74% of all expenditures. Again, a little bit unusual. You have 30% of your construction fund, and the only reason I say it's unusual is because every district doesn't always have a construction project going on. So some years you're going to have 0% in that fund, but just because you're in the midst of a construction project, it's representing a bigger issue. 6% is in your debt service fund, and then 4%, 3% in food service and community service. Now we're going to look at where does your money go by program area. And these program areas are defined by the state, and so every school district uses the exact same terminology. and it needs to report their expenditures the same way. You can kind of see the pie chart there, and I won't go around looking at every single one of those, but you'll notice that the middle piece is what's called elementary and secondary regular instruction. So 34% of your money is going straight to the classroom for what they call regular instruction, and that would be textbooks and teachers or staff for that. And I know I said this to you before, but again, this is by state reporting. There's really other parts of that pie chart, which I'm going to point out, are really what I call regular instruction or straight to the classroom type instruction. And that's the vocational education instruction. You're just required by state law to separate that out, so that's another 1%. But the other big piece that goes there is your special education instruction. So again, all the students that you're educating special ed-wise, 12% of that, of your budget goes to that. And then you have pupil support services of 11%. So over 50% of all your expenses are going directly into the classroom. The rest of it is, administration represents 5% of it. Sites and buildings is 21%. Again, that's high because of the construction that you have going on in your district. If you didn't have that, your percentages going straight to the classroom would be a much higher percentage, just because you don't have that additional expense that you have this coming year. Yeah, sure.
Is there any way that I can find other districts pie chart like that?
Probably that doesn't look exactly like that, but yes, there is some tools on the state website that would be able to show you where they're spending the money program-wise. Yep.
I'd just be interested.
And I would also be able to sit down with our new program.
And the new program should have it on.
100%.
And
Absolutely.
easy to read.
Very
So
easy.
if you wanted to come by and we wanted to take a look at that, or any other board member did, we could sit down and you could compare district to district.
That would be kind of nice.
Yep, be very easy to do. Okay, so now we're going to focus from your current year's budget now to the levy. So these are the taxes that you're going to take action on tonight. And really, how do they compare for what was being proposed to tax for next year compared to what was taxed this past year, 2015? I mentioned you have 5 different funds on the previous slides, but for the taxes, that only happens for 3 funds. It's the general fund, the community service fund, and your debt service fund. So there's no tax portion for the food service fund, and there's no tax portion, so to speak, for your construction fund, although that is kind of a misnomer only because it's going in debt service, you're paying off your bonds that are related to your construction fund. So this first slide is all the major components of the general fund, and I'll highlight some of the differences on another slide just to make it easier to look at. But what you'll see on the bottom here is that last year, so the taxes payable in 2015, your general fund was $1,173,000. This year, the proposal is $1,331,000, which is an increase of $158,000, or a 13.47% change. And again, I'll go over the major components of that change in the upcoming slide. Then when we look to the community service fund, again, you'll see that last year the levy was $81,139. The proposed levy for this year is $80,745, which is a difference of a decrease actually of $394, or a decrease of roughly 0.5%. The one piece I do want to point out on this slide, because I don't have a separate note on this, is if you look at early childhood family education, which is the second line down, you'll notice that it's dropping by $10,662 from last year to this year. And disabled school age care is going from $0 to $10,000. And this was a conscious decision made by administration to keep taxes the same, but by moving $10,000 out of one program, which is early childhood family education, into a different program, which was disabled school age care for $10,000. So you'll notice that there's big swings between those two programs, but the total for community ed is almost the same as last year.
And the main reason for that, just so you're aware, is the success of our PAWS program. That's why we need the additional dollars. We have quite a few students going to that program. Some of them have specific needs. So this will allow us to better meet those needs.
Okay, and then the last fund is your debt service fund, again, principal and interest on your outstanding bonds. So the first line there is the voter-approved debt service. It's almost exactly the same next year as this year, a difference of $1,360. and that's just to mirror your interest and principal payments for next year. Your facility bonds, so you'll see that that went down by $60,000 because last year was your last year, you pay those off. Actually, you'll pay them off this coming fiscal year, but that was based on the taxes that you levied last year. So that's obviously a decrease in that fund as well. And then that last line, what's called the debt excess adjustment, that's again just telling you that you've, over time, not because of error, just because of the state requirements, you've collected more money, and so now than you needed to pay off your debt, so you need to give some of that back to your taxpayers. So last year, you actually gave $35,000 back to your taxpayers. This year, based on the current calculations, you need to give back an additional $49,000. And let me just explain that. I just feel bad sometimes. I don't want to make people think that the district's overtaxing them. The state has a law, excuse me, that requires you to levy 5% more than what you need for your debt service. And the reason for that is two things. One is that sometimes you don't collect all your taxes. I mean, people default on their taxes, and there's abatements or other reasons that you don't get your money. Well, you are guaranteeing all the people who own your bonds that you're going to pay this debt. So the state wants to make sure that you have the cash on hand and you're able to pay the debt. And that's why they tell you you need to levy 5% more. But again, they always do a year-by-year calculation looking 3 years back to say, well, do you have more money than you needed? If so, give it back to taxpayers. And so that's why this happens every year. So you're not alone. This happens in every single district. So when we combine all those funds together, the actual levy that you certified last year and collected funds on was $2,074,589. The action that's in front of the board tonight is to propose a levy of $2,159,376, which is a dollar change of $84,787 and a percentage change of 4.09%. So let's look at some of those major changes. Why is the increase the $80-some thousand? Make sure. So the major changes, this is new legislation, the first one I have here on the slide. It's called long-term facility maintenance. And let me just give the board a little bit of background on this. You might have already known this when you certified your preliminary levy. There was legislation that was instituted last spring that kind of allowed everybody in the state to get on the same plan as the largest 20 districts in the metro area were on for a long, long time. And the largest 20 metro area districts could use a funding source called alternative facilities funding. And without board approval, they could issue bonds that met certain requirements. They couldn't build new buildings with it, but they could modify their existing facilities, build, put a new roof on, or redo their parking lot and all that kind of stuff. And it was based on the size of the schools, and then the largest 20 just have that authority. Well, for a long time, there's been, a lot of districts out there saying, hey, let us do that, same type of thing as well. And so finally, the state got rid of kind of all facility to a degree and replaced it with what's this new legislation called long-term facility maintenance. Now, what it did also is it replaced the 2 bullet points below, your health and safety levy, which you did have authority for, and your deferred maintenance levy, which you did have authority for. But based on this year, for your fiscal year 2017, you're going to be able to levy for $152,000. You're not going to be able to levy for your health and safety and deferred maintenance, which was $56,000 and $65,000 respectively. But it's a net increase for you on the levy side of $30,000. Actually, you're going to have a bigger increase in total revenue because you're going to get some state aid and your long-term facility maintenance as well. One other point I want to mention is that this is a phased-in program. So this year, you're getting this revenue based on $193 per pupil per student. In fiscal year 18, that's going to go up to $292 per kid. And then in fiscal year 2019, it goes up to $380. So there will be a possibility of getting definitely a possibility of getting additional dollars. Some of that, again, will be local levy, and some of it will be state aid, and it'll be all based on your tax base.
One of the reasons this is so good is that, again, we get rid of the health and safety and deferred maintenance, but we didn't get any additional state aid for those 2 funds. So we get additional dollars for this.
This is great news for you. I mean, it's a way to put some money aside so that the bonding that you just went through. If you had this in place, 10, 15 years ago, you could have set this money aside and taken care of those projects yourself.
And that's what it's supposed to be designed for.
That is absolutely.
So we aren't supposed to have to go back to the public looking for a huge amount of maintenance items on buildings that already exist.
Yeah, well, I don't want to go that far, we're saying, that's certainly the intention, that if if there's enough money here to take care of all your roofs, or take care of your boilers and all that kind of stuff, that's what the money's for. And the money has to be spent on that, you cannot take this money and, lower your class size or something like that. I mean, it's intended to be put aside for those type of programs. Whether it's going to be sufficient or not to take care of all those needs, you never have to ask your voters for other things, I can't tell you for sure, but it's going to sure help a lot. I mean, it will go a long ways. And again, what this money does not account for too, though, is if you wanted to add classroom space, you could use this dollars for that.
Yep, I understand.
Yeah, but it's to take care of your existing facilities. I think it's a
But
great thing.
the state's input on this money is greater. Is that correct?
Then
So the
your health and
state-
safety.
See, what happens to us in a small town is our taxpayers have to pick up a monster load.
Yep,
And the metro schools have a different world than we do, and it's really not fair.
yep.
And so this one looked like it was in the process of an equalization.
There is
Where
equalization.
all of a sudden the state tax is in a hole, so the metro gets to help us with our kids a little bit, which is only just. Is that correct?
Well,
Am I
that's
somewhere-
rhetorical, so that's fair. But
Okay.
the correct part of your statement for sure is that there is some equalization to this. So you are going to get some state aid. Yes, that is absolutely true.
They're starting.
Yes. Okay, there you go. Some other major changes in your general fund part was your capital project referendum, which I believe you passed a year ago. That's tied to market value, your referendum market value. And since that grew, and it grew by 2.41% in your counties plural, that means you get additional roughly almost $14,000. Also, okay, so that's actually more money for your school district. That's real dollars. The second line item, I just wanted to kind of give you the difference, is this is kind of like an equalization type of thing as well. You get capital dollars based on so many dollars per kid and based on how old your buildings are, et cetera. And that's a formula that generates a dollar amount. And then there's another formula that says, okay, we're going to have local people pay so much of this and the state's going to pay so much of this. Well, as your tax base grows, you have to pay more. The local people have to pay a bigger share of that. So in this case, for, again, taxes payable in 2016, you actually are going to get roughly about $1,000 more in total dollars for your operating capital. But your local people have to pay $8,768 more because your tax base grew. So that's not a good bang for your buck from last year to this year. You get $1,000 more, but you got to pay $8,000 more to get that extra $1,000. But that's just, again, part of how the funding system works. So I just want you to understand that that's really under your control. It's a good thing if you have more value in your district, but you're paying a bigger share.
So why did they go with the extra monies for buildings and stuff like that? Why didn't they just throw it on your capital, where essentially that's what you used your capital years past for anyhow?
Well, capital actually has a broader definition of what you can use it on. You can use capital on technology, and you can use it on books and a lot of other things. Where deferred maintenance, you can.
Tables, chairs, all of that
Okay.
stuff.
Yep. So it's a different. It sounds the same, but and you could use your capital dollars on a roof, but you couldn't. And you could use it on textbook, but you can't use your long-term facility maintenance on textbooks. And so capital is more
Okay,
loose.
okay, all right. So it's a true capital.
Right.
In that sense.
Yes, right, exactly. So if I just kind of tally these up, you have major changes, prior year adjustments, and that's just, again, going back 3 years, and because so many things in your levy are based on estimates. How many kids do you have? What's your tax base? A lot of different stuff. So your prior year adjustments account for $18,000. The major adjustments, the major changes I just listed on the last two slides total $71,000. I'm sorry, the prior adjustments plus the major changes total $71,000, and your total increase was $84,000. So the remaining $13,000 is just miscellaneous things over all your different categories. That kind of gives you a handle on that. But, okay, so now you went up $81,000. What is it? How does it affect your taxpayers? That's really kind of what, if I live in your district, I want to know. So your total levy increased by 4.09%. That's at $81,000. Your referendum market value of all the parcels in your school district, that went up by 2.41%. I just got the information from Stearns County this week. Your net tax capacity increased by 5.28%. So again, this is the values of the properties in your district and how much you're able to tax it for. They both went up. That's a good sign if you own property in your district. Some of that's going to be because your valuations of existing properties increase. You may have seen that on your own properties or maybe not. Some of it's going to be to new because of new construction. So here's what it looks like. If you have a home value that was valued at $100,000 last year, this is an important part, and it still is valued at $100,000 this year, okay, so you have no valuation change, you would actually have a decrease in your school district portion of your taxes of $2.63, or 0.92%. And you can see the rest of the chart. So if you go up to a $250,000 home value, they're going to see a tax decrease of $6.04, and that's for a whole year, or 0.74%. So even though your total levy is going up 4%, if your valuation stayed constant from year to year, you actually will see a decrease.
What about business name?
You know what?
Similar?
What's that?
Would they see
It'd still be
something
lower.
similar?
Yep, they'll still be lower.
Okay.
So what other factors could affect your property taxes? Well, just as I mentioned, if your valuation of your property went up, your taxes will go up. If it went down, you're going to have even a bigger decrease. If there were new elections that didn't happen in your school district, but certainly if any elections happened, elsewhere in the county. And obviously, when you receive your tax statement, school district is just one portion of it. And I know that sometimes people get confused about that too. You said that my taxes were going to go down and look at their tax statement and money went up. Well, you're taxed by the county, you're taxed by the city, you're taxed by special taxing districts, so any of those could affect your taxes too. We're here just commenting on the school district portion. As always, and I know most people know this, but if you may qualify for tax relief by the state of Minnesota, if you go to that website address, and I know Bob's intention is to put this presentation on the district's website so they would have an access to be able to grab that website address to go for tax relief, that's where you go. And then I think that, so then again, the process is tonight, you'll be recommending a dollar amount specific to the penny. And so that will be that $2,159,375.67. And that was, I know is on your agenda tonight. And so at this point in time, we'll be at questions, and I'll turn it back over to the chair if he wants to open up for any public comment.
Any public comments anywhere? Jacob? No. Are you paying attention?
Yeah.
That's good for you. Okay, I think we can move back, right?
Yeah.
Bob, we don't have any other presentations?
Nope, you're good to go. Thanks.
I'll wait for the survey. I'll wait for the survey.
Okay, item number 1, we just had. Then we're on item number 2, is review and consider approval of the final 2015 payable 2016 levy certification, which is that number you're talking about, and I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
And I have a second by Mark. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. Public have any comments there? Okay. Set date for January 2016 board meeting. I'm assuming you're talking about the first board meeting.
I am talking about the first board meeting in January, well, first and only board meeting in January. I just put down for the corresponding date would be Tuesday, January 12th. That would be the corresponding date to what we've had in the past.
Okay.
So unless the board wants to change that date and pick another one, that's just
So that would
corresponding.
be the day before our, isn't it the
Yep.
day before?
Yep, and that was the same way last year before the MSB Leadership Conference. So you'd have your board meeting, and then the next day, typically, board members go down, there's the pre-conference too, so you should take a look at that. If you haven't gotten information, just get a hold of me, and I will send some information to you. And then we'd have Thursday, and then part of Friday for the leadership conference.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the January 12th date at the same time.
I'll second it.
We have a second by Heidi. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Again, public, if you have any comments, just raise your hand and holler at us. Now, review and consider approval of the 2015-17 school year's contract with J. Colton Incorporated Computer Network Service.
And you have that, what we're looking at is a 2-year contract. It would not change the second year. It would be the same for the second year. And it would be at a cost of $50,350. I can tell you over the course of years, he very seldom has spent that much time. So that is the maximum amount, but he usually has not gotten to that. That certainly has not gotten over.
Oh, is that right? So we don't even get to the numbers?
Typically, we have not gotten to the full number. We've gotten close, but we've never overspent on this one. I think we really do get good bang for the buck from Jim. He's done a great job. I think he's very efficient. So I'd certainly recommend approval.
Okay, we entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the
Uh,
contract.
I have a motion from Lou to approve, and a second from Mark. Is that what happened there? Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think that Eden Valley also shares, I believe, in the end, it'll be the same contract between the districts.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passed. Okay, now we're on personnel. Review and consider approval to increase time for Amanda Wertz payroll from 4.5 days a week to 5 days per week effective December 7th,
If
2000.
you take a look at the addendum back on August 25th, we added 4 hours. She was working 4 hours a day at that particular time, if you remember. I said we're going to start with 4 hours a day, but I may be coming back just because of it's really the immensity of the Affordable Care Act that has caused this to happen. It's an extremely large amount of things that she now needs to do because of that particular piece. And quite frankly, I'm not even sure, I mean, that adding her to the full 5 days a week really will do justice for the amount of work that act has added to us. So I'm recommending to the board that we add the 4 more hours, and that would put her at 5 days a week.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion from Heidi to approve and a second from Cheryl. Any further discussion? I'd just like to say one thing. It's probably a problem for all the schools. So sooner or later, there will be somebody who will start up to take that pressure off and try and do it for a whole series of schools.
Yeah.
So it may take a year or two, but
Hopefully there'll be
somebody have to
software. I
alleviate
mean,
that.
there's a lot of our vendors that are working on software that will hopefully automate some of this. But right now, it's changing as fast as it's coming in place.
Terrible.
So we're kind of running by the seat of our pants. Hold Insurance, who is now our insurance company, has been very helpful with making sure that we're staying on task and meeting all the requirements that we need to meet. But that particular law has, believe me, I think there's times when I really wish I wouldn't be asking for this, because then the Affordable Care Act would be in place right now. And it wouldn't cause so much things. There's certainly some good things about it, but it has really increased our workload to make sure that we meet that law.
What are other districts doing for the same?
Some of them are hiring. At one time, the West Central Lead was, had hired CBIZ for a year. Okay, and it cost our district like, I want to say about 15,000 or so much per staff member. And quite frankly, we just weren't seeing the bang for the buck for that. So when the first year the West Central Lead paid that cost. After some of the districts said that no, that's not where we're at, then the district started paying the cost. And I chose to go with Mahold to help us. I think we've been really grateful for their service. I think they're a much smaller outfit. I think we've gotten a lot. For us personally, I think the other schools have certainly made their own choices, but for us personally, I think the smaller company, we've gotten the service that we felt we needed in order to do that. So there are companies out there that districts are paying to help guide them. Not necessarily do the work, Okay, so even when we had, we were paying CBIZ to do it, they weren't doing the work for us. They were just advising to help make sure that we stayed where we needed to be and did what we needed to do to make sure that we met the requirements of the law. I just think that this works better for us.
Well,
And we don't pay Mahold any additional for their piece. Part of what they do is because they have the insurance with us.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passed. Now we'll go to number 2 on personnel. Review and consider approval to hire Sue Kearns, early childhood ECFE parent educator position, effective December 2nd, 2000.
This is contingent upon meeting our background check requirements, but we've been struggling to find somebody for this position for quite a while. Steve Daly has a similar position and has not been able to fill it. So
I think Sue used to do it.
Sue used to be an ECFE teacher here. It's a different position, but she used to work in the district, yes.
What does a parent educator?
Just kind of what it says, meets with the parents. It's not, they don't do there's not a lot of hours associated with this particular program. But they set up meetings and it's just what it says, help educate parents.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion from Heidi to
I'll
approve.
second.
A second from Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passed. Okay, so then we should be on informational reports. And now our superintendent, Robert Hewitt, wants to give us all the great news about our great school in Paynesville.
Well, just a lot of short things. We just met last week, so not a lot has changed. From that, I'm very grateful that we didn't have to do anything with the weather this morning, so that's the first thing I'm very happy with. We met today in a small group to kind of start discussing and developing a security plan as far as camera placement and buzzing system for the high school and elementary. Just a small group of administrators will eventually take that to our technology committee and run that past there, but we want to get some things in place before we take it to that committee, or not in place, but some information gathered. National Honor Society induction again is on December 6th. If you're interested in doing that, get back to me today because we need to have a final count on numbers. Still working on adjusting the school calendar. We got a couple final dates that I've been waiting for, so hopefully I will have the meet with the staff members to kind of go over that calendar. I have had one put together and then some things came up that said, no, let's try this. So I need to make some changes on that. Just a reminder, at the next meeting, we're going to discuss the first meeting in January. Today I sent you last year's agenda and addendum. So just take a look at that. Those are the things we need to accomplish. The things really will be discussion. We won't be making any decisions, no votes on it, just to get a feeling for how we want to do the officers, how we want to do the committees. So that's kind of where the discussion will really sit on. Band concert at 7:30 on December 7th. Choir concert at 7:30 on December 14th. Home gymnastics meet tonight. Home girls basketball tonight. There's home wrestling meet on Thursday. Home boys basketball game on Friday. And also just be aware that we're going to look at putting in a dry sprinkler system into the stadium piece. It's about a $6,000 piece because right now we cannot use that stadium during the winter. All right, and I think the Baseball Association may come back and ask to extend the lease so that they can take care of it also over the winter months when we're not using it, so that they can take care of it for the use and also pay the heating costs and that type of stuff. So I think you'll see that come back to the board for some discussion. The dry system is about $6,000. We're looking at splitting it in 3 ways. The general fund will take $2,000 of that out of our capital reserve. The Baseball Association will take a couple thousand, and community will take a couple thousand. So that's the way we're going to kind of distribute that up. But if we're going to use the facility, we have to have that dry system in and operational. And then there's a couple other things that we need to do as far as covering sprinkler heads and a gas line, that we want to make sure that there's no damage when this takes place. But that's what's happening right now. That's what I have.
Okay, thank you. So do we have any other sharing of the board? One thing I want to mention for all the public at home, our next meeting, we have the kids here. So tune in on your televisions and take a look and see what the kids of Paynesville have to say. It's always exciting because they have a lot of interesting things that come up. So, I'll make or entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion from Lou to adjourn. Do we have a second? We have a second from Heidi. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no? Passed. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And then I